Hey everyone. Thank
Hello.
you.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for accepting to join today's webinar series on international student as a guest speaker. We have about 100 participants who have registered for this event. My name is Krishna Bista from University of Louisiana Monroe, and it's my pleasure to introduce my guest speaker and share some of the ideas regarding international student retention, admission, and transfer for today's theme.
Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Stephanie McRae.
Yes.
I finished my doctorate from Clark Atlanta University in May of 2016, and I'm currently a resident director at Spelman College. And my area of interest for my dissertation was international students at historically Black colleges.
Wow, that is very unique.
Thank you.
Something I would like to learn more about.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's a very powerful research.
Okay. Hi, I'm Suzan. Boafo-Arthur. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Scranton, and my interest areas are in international students, acculturation, and transitional issues.
One more. Love to learn more about.
Yeah.
Dr. Glass? Dr. Liu?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Glass. I'm an assistant professor at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and I do research on international student engagement, and I have a book by that name as well.
So who is switching? Okay. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Liu, go ahead.
So, all right. So my name is Jun Liu. I'm a Vice Provost for Global Affairs and also Dean of International Academic Programs and Services at Stony Brook University. But my academic title is Professor of Linguistics. My major areas of interest is second language acquisition, language acculturation and socialization, and also mainly to help international students succeed. I just heard from Stephanie. I actually was in Atlanta. I worked at Georgia State University for 5 years, and my other area of interest is the second language writing.
Great.
Dr. Liu just joined my university, and I'm the proudest, happiest, most excited faculty member, researchers, mentor ever.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next one, please.
Okay, I guess that's me. My name is Suzan. I'm a PhD student at the University of UMass Amherst. I'm in the higher education department, and I just published a paper on international students' persistence in relation to academic and social integration. I'm originally from the Netherlands, so I'm very excited to join you all.
Congratulations on your publication. Last but not the least, we have Emmanuel. Emmanuel, please introduce yourself.
Somehow you are muted, Emmanuel. Can everybody hear him?
No.
It must be his microphone because we don't see the mute button, but it must be the microphone.
Yeah. While he's, okay, we should keep on going. We have our audience members, watching our webinars. Let me start with our first questions. While Emmanuel
Can I just introduce you? Yes. That is Krishna Vista. He is the editor of the Journal of International Students, something that he started single-handedly and grown into a fantastic, fabulous venue for scholars to publish about international students' issues. And we started this webinar. I am his sidekick. I have been helping him as one of the associate editors and also starting new initiatives like this one. And we started this webinar series about 6 months ago. This is the 6th one, I think, or 5th one.
Right.
And we've been bringing amazing scholars together for this kind of chat, informal conversation. And welcome everybody. I'm helping out as the tech guy also.
Thank you, Sam, for this one. Yeah, and then I'd like to mention, Dr. Chris Glass, who has been on the editorial board and editors. And thank you for your, extreme help.
And by the way, my name is Sam Sarma. I am at Stony Brook University in SUNY systems. No, that's good.
All right, let's take our first questions. The first question is the retention of international students depends not only quality teaching, but also on the helping them integrate to the campus community through initiatives in sports, social event, student organization, and mentoring by professors, and support from the staff and peers. How well are the retention effects outside the classroom integrated with the international student in class, educational experiences in our institution? And then second part of the question is, what are the other support services or strategies in practice that boost admission and retention?
So the keyword was retention, right?
Yeah.
Right, retention. Right, that's the
And
first
support.
part of the question. Yes, please. Anyone feel free to jump in.
Okay, I think I would like to start on this one. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So
Can we all mute? If there is an echo, if everybody other than the speaker mutes, then this problem will be solved. Otherwise, it's fine. Or
okay.
if we want to go out or cough or something.
Okay, so I'd like to start with this one, by answering this one. I've had the privilege of being an international student in Norway, and then I was an international student also in the United States. When it comes to retention, I think, or I believe that when I was in Norway, my experience there with regards to retention was more positive as compared to my experience in the United States. What I found out was in my first year as a doctoral student in the United States, acculturation was a bit difficult for me coming in, and I realized that there wasn't any support. Actually, I had to go out and find the support myself from various activities on campus that were organized by different groups on campus. I couldn't really access the professors or other administrative persons to sort of alleviate my concerns. And so I believe that when it comes to retention of international students, there's a lot that needs to be done. And one of the most important things that has to be done is to actually find out from the students themselves what their needs are, and then the supports can be put in place. So yeah, that's my take on the whole retention piece.
Anybody please respond or bring up some new issues?
Sure. I will continue. I think that's a very good example. Can you hear me, Junior?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So as you know that my current position is Vice Provost for Global Affairs. So I see international students admitted to our university. But shockingly, in the first year, half of them, or if not half, at least 40% of them receive probation because of they could not reach GPA requirement. That is shocking to me. But I also realize that nowadays we have younger and younger international students, and they tend to come to venture outside their comfort zone. So they need lots of support to help them. Even though I've been in current institute for 1 year, I try to identify what kind of services we provide. So here are a few examples. We are still assessing their effectiveness. First of all, as many other universities, we have student associations. They're usually arranged by their region or by their country. And they occasionally organize some activities, put a website, help students to identify, to search for houses, etc., to provide some support. Secondly, we have what we call a host family program. So some families in the community offer their help to host some international students, not in their homes or houses, but they try to arrange some bi-monthly or monthly activities, or some during festivals. They try to share the moments with the international students. That certainly make them feel very comfortable. We also have another activity called iCafe. So that is mainly the lecture series to talk about issues most international students are concerned about. And sometimes they can get help and network with people to see what kind of challenges they face, what kind of solutions they might have. And last but not least, as far as I know, we have English Pal to help international students who need additional help beyond their classroom to improve their language proficiency and communicate competence. To me, retention is more important, or as important as admission. So that the tendency that international students tend to fall short simply because they are not being taken care of outside their classroom, or they themselves do not have initiatives to socialize with other communities, to venture out of their comfort zone, should be treated very seriously. So as Sam said, that we have tried to look at all the resources and learn from other best practices to help international students feel comfortable beyond their classroom. I stop there.
These are very, I mean, the approach that Dr. Liu just outlined is to first look at what people are already doing so that you recognize what people are doing, you connect the dots, you bring people together. A lot of times when institutions start approaching these new issues, they start from somewhere other than what passionate advocates are already beginning to work on, trying to do. And the initiative that Dr. Liu talked about, I'm familiar with all of them. And one of them actually started out of a grant project that I and 3 other colleagues started called the iCafe, and they have continued this at the International Orientation Program. But while these are, I must admit this, I think these are very tiny efforts compared to the demand, the need of students out there, maybe like 20% of what we need to do. But the fact that he, as an institutional leader, has approached this by first trying to recognize, however small, however, wherever they're located, and look around and try to build from what already exists is a powerful technique. I just wanted to highlight that. And the other thing that I would say is that until and unless faculty members are sensitive enough to know one basic simple thing, that when a person comes from another, across the world, that person hasn't been able to sleep or find a comfortable, community of people, that, as Dr. Liu was already highlighting, when that person isn't finding the right food to eat, when that person doesn't know how to get to their apartment, if all of these life things, when life is happening so much and they're so young and they're so anxious, no academic, no professional, no community support is going to work unless that thing works. So at the question is like, how does the life of the person works before they can come to class and pay attention? So what I do is that connect that dot of life with actually learning, right? Which is, I have a handout that basically reminds me and my fellow colleagues in the department that basically says the student may be going through these things, and here are something that you can do as a faculty member. Most powerful is when a faculty member says, how is your life? Are you doing fine? If you are struggling for any reason and are not performing well in this class, it may be confidence, it may be sleep, it may be, need a little bit more time, it may be stress, right? Anything, just let me know. If one faculty just offers that kind space of their office, kind support of their time, kind understanding of simply looking in the eyes and saying, if you're struggling, I am there for you. The student may not bug the faculty too much, but the student will begin to make a difference by simply being more resilient. That's what I have seen. So that if you can connect the 2 dots between life and learning, then a lot of things in between begins to function. And when things function, students are successful. That's what I think admission, the gap exists in our university. I think faculty can make a big difference. And although all of these other things are important, but at the end of the day, even if students are being given all of these support, the student comes into class and the faculty is like, oh God, I don't want more of these international students. Why does the university keep admitting them? Oh, they want money from them. Oh, these Chinese rich kids, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that chime in here. Yeah, you make a very important point when you say that until faculty are sensitized to the needs of students, things may not change. And what I found in my experience is that a lot of faculty have no idea what it means to be an international person in the United States. So they're expecting the student to be like everyone else, and even in my experience, to even do more than the typical student, without taking into account all the other things that are a part of the student's life. And I've also found out that sometimes when other people are trying to educate other faculty and staff on being more sensitive and responsive to the needs of these students, sometimes resistance is faced because, change is hard and people really are set in their ways. And they may not want to have to do anything extra besides what they're already doing to help, the situation. So it really is a difficult topic. Personally, after my first year in my PhD program, I transferred schools because I didn't feel supported at all. So I changed schools as a result of that. But anyways, I'm going to stop here and let someone else chime in.
Dr. Glass. Dr. Glass has written a book on the student engagement, which is a big, one of the important books so far is in the field of international student. Dr. Glass, would you like to share some of your experience, thoughts, or research?
Yeah, well, I think all the points that have been made so far, I would just echo all of those. And I would say an interest of mine recently has been looking at first generation international students and the role that faculty play in particular. And one of the things that we're finding I would support is that it's actually international students' relationships with faculty that get them involved with co-curricular activities. We would often think about it maybe differently from a traditional US student perspective, but faculty play a particularly important role. I think the one thing I would add to maybe this conversation that hasn't been said, and I think it's been pretty comprehensive, would be the fact that the demographic profile of the international students that are coming to our institutions has diversity. Traditionally, retention has not been an issue with international students. So what we're really talking about, from my view, with retention is about a subset of international students that we have to think about more proactively about issues of retention, because this has not been traditionally an issue with international students. And I guess what I would ask institutions to think about are probably two things. One is look at why students are leaving. If it's about a better fit of an institution, that might be something difficult to manage, because international students might want to level up to a different institution. But if it's about financial challenges, or if it's about academic challenges, or it's about a sense of belonging, those are things your institution can do something about. And each institution should really understand, if you don't retain, why is that the case? And then I guess my second point would be, I think this is where advising comes into play so greatly. Just like we look at maybe a first generation US student from a non-traditional background, and we proactively advise those students to make sure that they are going to be as successful as their more traditional peers, I think international students, we have to be more proactive in looking for indicators that student may not successfully complete year to year. And rather than waiting for that student, a problem to occur financially or with their visa, proactively reach out to that student. It's called intrusive advising, for lack of a better word, because it's proactively looking for ways to reach out. So
I would like to respond on that. Thank you. That's a very, I think, interesting perspective to take. And so in my previous paper, I looked at the social and academic integration of Tinto's model that suggests that integration reduces the chance of dropping out. And what I found with international students specifically is that social integration is not so much related to persistence in a positive way, sometimes even in a negative way, but academic integration is continuously a very important factor in predicting persistence of international students. And I looked at Asian students specifically as a group, and for them this was also the case. So I think that the academic integration piece is something that became very clear to me, that that's a very important element to look at when we think about how to engage those students and how to
Well, one thing that I will say is that I work at a historically Black college. And so we're already working through a specific population. And so now we have a special population, and then we're adding another special population within that. And then even more specifically is the single gendered institutions. And how do we support all of the students within these unique communities? And so now we have, courses, especially first year experience, which are at many institutions, but at HBCU that is specific to, literature of the African diaspora. How is my experience as a Black female, which not all international students can relate to. So then it becomes, now we need to incorporate them in the classroom learning. So can they relate to the experience? Can they learn something? Can international students learn something from the Black experience? Absolutely. But I learn more when it's related to me as well. And we have to really look at our students and say, yes, when you leave out the gates of this HBCU and you enter the workforce, this is not what it looks like. So now we have to make sure that our classroom teaching, and how we have activities and programs across the board cater to them leaving and graduating. And then it's, okay, we've had lots of students who come who are from different countries within Africa. And so now how do we cater to them being an international student within this Black American society? So how are they being included within our campuses? How are we making sure that there's comfort within that? You know, we can speak from a student life and a residence life standpoint of, can I have an international student who is a resident advisor? How can I have my staff reflect what our community looks like? And really try, and that is actually one of the hardest things, is that over the past 5 years that I've been here, is we've only had one international student who is an RA, one who was interested and one who really, you know, wanted to make that difference. And so we do have a living learning community that's social justice, which many of our international students live within, but we want more because not all of them live there. So I think that is important. And we've actually had many of our students who have left housing. They said, you know what, if I live on campus, I have to eat in a dining hall. I'm ready to go. I can't have that. So we really need to make that integration across campus of those basic needs. International students who have families, how are we supporting not only them, but their family?
Right, within that 1 minute, you highlighted such a lot of issues. I think we'll take years to unpack that. We haven't even started.
Sam, let's get some ideas, feedback, or anything. If Suzan has to add anything, she has written a book chapter with me, and then we'll get Emmanuel if he has something to say from the student perspective.
Yeah, sure. Picking back on what Stephanie said, I've also done some research on Black African international students and their experiences in the United States educational system. And what I've found is that their experiences are vastly different from that of the typical international student. And so evidently there needs to be an extra layer of support for that particular group of students as well, because of where they're coming from and the labels that may be attached to them when they enter this country. So yeah, there's a need there as well.
Wow.
Great. Emmanuel, anything to add before we?
No,
Emmanuel,
the sound is still not working. Can you restart the computer? That'll be easier. That's my experience. The thing that really works with most computers, when sound doesn't work, it's a hardware issue.
Thank you, Sam. Is there anything we'd like to add before we jump to the second question?
Let's go.
All right, then we go to the second question. Here, studies suggest that many international students transfer to another college or university when they receive little or no help from their university support system. What are some best practices that would encourage them to inform their institution about their struggle? How could institution get a handle on who transfer where, when, and why? I know we touched some of the issues on this before, but if we can add some more information.
Mm-hmm. So I think it'd be great to understand how are we admitting international students at first. And so really it becomes, okay, admissions does it, then we're passing them to a different department and it's not my problem anymore. Mm-hmm. And so really it's creating some consistency. So, it's a special population. Let's make sure that we have our, international student department that starts and finishes with them. So they're advising what comes out of that office. The whole gamut can come from that office. And a lot of times with smaller schools, another problem is we have one-man offices. And when you have one person handling, a large amount of international students, that's not as effective and it's not as helpful. So I think a great practice would be to say, okay, I'm here with you start to finish, and being able to connect the students with other departments, being able to say, let me make a phone call. Can I walk you over there?
I think another thing I would add is I think this, many institutions have international student advisory boards or types of leadership councils.
Yes.
The sense of belonging is something that's really important, but belonging isn't just a sense of community. It also involves a sense of political power or a sense of voice within the university. And what I found with international student advisory boards and retention is they can often be a sounding board to understand why students love your institution and leave your institution. They can tell you stories, not just, you know, data points about, you know, why some people might have left or some people might stay, or why people are interested or not coming more to your institution, or more or less. And so and that takes a lot of, in a sense, it takes a community who trusts that International Student Advisory Board to share difficult but confidential realities about their experiences. And so, and I think that could answer, I think the question was about the who, what, how do you figure out who, what, and where? How do you get a handle on that? Even more than a survey or you're looking at institutional data, I bet you a group of international students really has a pretty good pulse on the dynamics that might be shaping that, and might have some good ideas about how the institution can change.
Can I add something quick to that? I have just finished a round of data collection by visiting 20 universities. This was focused on graduate level international students, where there's even less support than undergraduate. So one thing, consistent pattern that I found across universities is that that kind of task force or a group or a network, maybe informal, maybe slightly formal, or maybe really institutionally mandated or supported. What I found was that the moment you include graduate international students on that team, the moment you include someone who was an international student in the past is included so that they can speak out of their personal experiences and their ethos, the moment they can call out people for saying nasty things about, like, oh, these international students, right? That dynamic completely changes, because it's a matter of political power and voice and identity, right? So that when you find someone who can come in at the intersection of the African international student experience or the domestic African student negotiating their relationship with Chinese international students who may not have worked with African American or African international persons, right? When these dynamics are brought in person, bodily, into the communities, into the network, it completely changes the dynamic. And I thought it was very fascinating. At Ohio State University, they make a deliberate effort of putting international students at the Writing Center administration, at the writing program, the faculty, the group, at the international task force. But some universities don't seem to understand that international students have perceptions about their universities. If there's someone in position that they can look up to and say, wow, if he could do it, I can do it, is a different dynamic than somebody without that kind of experience simply telling them, right? Or especially when it is negative, when it is critical, when it is judgmental, just based on testing and numbers and statistics, it can be tremendously disempowering. What I'm saying is not just identity politics. What I'm saying is taking advantage of the asset that you already have. Because if your student demographic and your faculty demographic and your staff demographic reflects the reality of the world, it will help out everybody. They will bring a perspective that benefits everybody, right? So when I say that, as an former international student, now a faculty member going to class, when I show tremendous sympathy to the domestic student, when they are likely to be disadvantaged in a majority international student group, I can make a difference in their life by promoting a sense of global citizenship for them. So this is not just for the international students. What we're talking about is for all students, making pedagogy, making support mechanisms, making community at the work more accessible, so that it is not only done for the people with a disability, but done for everybody that can be, give and take from that kind of accessibility.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. I will ask Emmanuel and Suzan to say their student voice. Then I will ask Dr. Liu to give his.
And I think there was.
Emmanuel, do you want to go first since you haven't spoken at all?
Oh yes, I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
can.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know what happened earlier on. My name is Emmanuel. My school is Central Michigan University. I'm in the doctoral program in higher education. I hope to be done by August this year. I've been an international student since August 2010, having pursued a couple of graduate degrees. Hopefully, wow. This will be my last one. very quickly to the first question, which I wasn't privileged to join, on retention, like we all know as professionals, practitioners, and students, it is mainly an institutional variable, but that has a larger implication on the student body. Currently, I am doing, my dissertation is focused on the influence of socialization on the lived experiences of international students. And I'm looking at graduate master's degree students in particular. And so what I've learned through this process is that the voices of international master's degree students, especially those from non-Western cultures, they are really different from that of the international students from some countries. And so as we engage in such scholarly discourse about international students, it is always necessary to look at the distinctions. I've interviewed 10 international students because I'm doing a qualitative study, and they mentioned that our university has incredible resources that they do not use. They don't explore all of them. And so it does make sense for them to say that, oh, this university leaders and administrators, they've done their very best to make sure we have an awesome experience here. We have a lot of resources. They were so busy with coursework that we don't even explore them. And I'm not making this up. I've gone through the transcripts, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, this is powerful. And above all, I spend time interviewing them face to face. But I know the response would definitely be different if I were to interview undergraduate students from some countries and in some situations. So master's degree students have already built some competency, and you go to it. For myself as a doctoral candidate, I don't necessarily any longer care about those supports, but I needed them when I came in 2010, seriously. So it does change with time as you adjust and face your reality and appreciate that reality, and discover how you can still move on and strive despite all odds. Then we come to the second question on why students leave and why they do not leave. I think the problem there is that, number one, those who transfer universities have got advantage because they have information and they have resources. If you were an international student like myself, who came here in 2010 for a master's degree in English language and literature, and without even thinking of any other part of the US outside my immediate university, with a financial burden on me and with everything, all my thoughts processes were, how will I just move and survive and graduate? And so it depends on universities too. There are some situations you will be in, some locations where you won't even think of the possibility of exploring the option of transfer. So it depends on the information you have, and that information is a real social capital. It will help us a lot. And it will also make sense that if international students know that given that they are not given the best of support here, that they have the option to transfer, that their service information could transfer to another university, that they can still be in status and continue with perhaps a better life. I think most of us in 2010 would have explored that option, but we didn't even have information. So that's part of it. Information is key. I have served as a member of the International Student Advisory Board. The most important things we talked about really were not even implemented. And so you look at it, and it meant a lot, because we're also overseen by an administrator on campus, a high-powered administrator. So, and the relationship, in fact, we conducted a survey and we found out a lot of things, but the extent to which they were implemented, you would be amazed they weren't really implemented. So I think it's just a working process.
All right, thank you. If you have anything to add, then I'll ask Dr. you to add more.
Yeah, me? Yeah, sorry. So to add on to what he said, yes, sometimes there's support that students haven't explored.
Can more of us mute? It's echoing.
Oh, okay. And sometimes there are options that students have not explored, but since I have a personal experience of transferring as well, I graduated my PhD in 2014, but I did transfer to another institution before I finished. And anecdotally, what I've realized is that students may leave because sometimes there are double standards when it comes to academic performance for these students. And so they feel that they are putting in their best, they are struggling with all these other social and cultural variables. And then on top of all that, the academic work is sort of judged differently. So that may be a factor that may influence their decision to leave the current institution. And I think that if students feel safe in talking to their professors or to administrators or to employees of international student services, they may reach out for these support systems and they may stay. But there might be some students who may feel unsafe when talking to any of these individuals because it may get to your professors, or who knows, they may be blacklisted and seen as a problem student, and so on and so forth. And so there are all of those concerns which make students feel that it may be safer for them to transfer out than to stay and finish at that particular institution. So that's my take on the second question.
Personally, before I take the Dr. Liu, I'd like to say something. When I was a student in the same cohort, I mean, that particular year, we received over 200 international students. However, 98 students left the university the very first semester. But as a student, I noticed that, but I didn't see university taking any initiative to know why that many students left the university in one semester, and how much time and energy we spent to recruit 100 students or 98 students. That was one of the scenario when I was a student. Dr. Liu?
Yeah, so I was about to, I think you alluded us to the fact that I think for a small group of students transfer, I think it's pretty natural sometimes because academic reason, financial reason, and another big reason is that they find the institution they are enrolled in, they do not fit because institutional culture. So I think to me, the three things probably can be done to help to retain students or to keep students. First of all, when we admit students, we should give them enough information for students to determine whether this is the institute they are going to come and stay. Many times, students are only blinded by the agent's ranking or the numbers. They do not know exactly what it means to be studying in a private university or single-gender university or comprehensive university. I think that we need to do a better job when we attract students to inform them what they are going to, what's going to occur and what they are going to be ready for. Secondly, I think that advising is a key. I've been to many institutions in the United States, and I realized that sometimes advisors only give them advice on a particular topic or in the course selection or prerequisite, etc. They do not take care of the context, where they're coming from. If international students can work with certain advisors on multiple occasions, they will build kind of rapport with which they can vet, they can share the challenges they have. So that probably can help them. So at Georgia State University, which is known to increase the retention for all students from 48% to 56%, I think over the number of 2 years or 3 years, part of the reason is they created a central advising system. They really look at advisors to focus on particular colleges or majors and follow up students, especially international students, how they do in their first semester, what courses cause problem. So that kind of longitudinal support will be far better than one-time shot or orientation or kind of workshop. And last but not least, I feel that international students will be far better if they have role models in faculty. And I think we really need to look at our faculty strengths to be the champions, to cheer them up and to hold constant seminars or workshops to really show them what kind of challenges they encounter and how they overcome them. And usually these international students will feel more empowered, encouraged, and to give them more try rather than abandoning or transferring before prematurely. So that's what I want to add.
Thank you.
So inspiring, so jam-packed with very inspiring ideas. Thank you.
Dr. Glass, if you have anything to add.
No, not to this question.
Okay. Can I add something? Oh, do we want to go for the third question? Let's do.
Now, before going to third questions, I still want to see the student perspective. Suzan from UMass, do you have anything to add?
So from a student perspective,
yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, so
why would you stay and why would you leave? I would say.
So I agree that the interaction I have with my supervisor and my advisor, it's the same person, is very important and is very defining for my experience here. And I see that from the data as well, that the academic struggles that students go through and the support that they get is super important. And I had to put some effort in reaching out to resources that I could use, like a writing center on campus and those kind of things that could support me in my academic career. But I soon realized that was something I had to do myself. And I think that realization made that I would reach out for those resources and reach out for faculty members too, and ask questions and those kind of things. So.
Okay, thank you. Before getting to the third question, Echo, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. Before we do the third question,
Dr. Sharma. Okay, yeah, I wanted to quickly add that some students who leave could also be due to institutional culture. And we mentioned earlier about, someone mentioned earlier about some schools not being a fit for some students. And I think the onus is on institutional leaders to really explore what is the institutional culture and how is it fitting, how is it accommodating or not this incoming international students. That is very powerful. If you are predominantly white institution and somehow international students are beginning to enroll and are beginning to be a part of your classroom demographic, I think it is important that the culture begins to change slightly to be more accommodating. And I teach English in a community college, and community college reduce their tuition for international students. That's so powerful and empowering. Bearing in mind that this small community college predominantly is just a white institution over the years, historically speaking, for the past 50 years of its existence. And so last year, 2016, they reduced their tuition, and today, which is January 25, someone told me, who is a student there, that their tuition again has been reduced to $190 per credit. I'm like, do you know what you are saying? She said $190 per credit. So with, when there's an empowering and encouraging institutional culture that welcomes international students, announces the various support services they need, invites domestic students or international students affairs into programs, and announce it, advertise it, so that it's like an all-round campus event and everybody is into it. That's one part of it. But the other part too is, if institutional leaders could do more to help international students, those that are struggling. I mean, it is pretty clear. This student has been here for some couple of years and is no longer able to enroll this semester due to financial difficulties. You could, have a meaningful conversation. Is there a way we can do to help out with this? Given that, historically speaking, you've been paying your bills, you are not just, you didn't just come here to be a burden, but things are tough now. I mean, so that's part of it. And another thing too is the fact that this very institution where I teach English, they just reduced their tuition again to $190 for international students. And I'm not sure any international students will want to leave that kind of place. And I also want to quickly add that all this reduction in tuition rates were made possible because of someone who works in the International Students Affairs Office, and he is from Saudi Arabia, and he is a powerful guy. If he's the go-to person in that.
That's the third question. So let me read you in the context of
Krishna, let me read the third question, because I also want to connect what I was going to say with the third question. Can I do that?
Yeah.
The work of supporting international students is often viewed as exclusively the business of the Office of International Programs or in our institutions. What roles can faculty, staff, and other students play in other places play in strengthening the quality of campus experience for international students? And perhaps more importantly, how could they be encouraged to contribute? So the question related to what we're already talking about is, I would translate the question this way. If you go back to the three powerful points that Dr. Liu shared, provide them information, improve advising, and look at the role of faculty as cheerleaders and role models. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if the faculty, I'm not trying to pose any binary, but if the faculty are able to translate the institutional vision from administrative leadership perspective, and the administrative leadership can translate the faculty perspective, if you are able to translate each other's vision, and by translate, I mean, if I understand that the university is trying to retain students, I should know how to help that out as a teacher in the classroom. If a teacher is trying to internationalize the engagement of domestic and international in the classroom, the institution must understand what that means, so that when the right hand knows how to translate the left hand's mission, and the left hand knows how to translate the right hand's mission, it becomes organic, it becomes meaningful. The student is no longer confused because you're dealing with the student, right? It's not like the student is a different animal, different species when you are looking at it from a faculty perspective, and a different kind of organism when you look from institutional perspective. It should be the same student, right? Meaning, if I want the student to be active, what does it mean from a pedagogical perspective? And what does it mean from an institutional leadership engagement perspective? What I have seen is the worst campuses that don't provide very meaningful support mechanisms are whatever the two parties don't seem to understand the student is one thing, right? I mean, the student that I want to retain is a learner as well as a person. The student that I want to activate, motivate is the same person that I'm trying to approach from a teacher perspective and a faculty, staff, social perspective. Am I making any sense at all when I say trying to translate the right hand, what the right hand does from the left hand, and so vice versa?
You're basically trying to say that faculty and as well as institutions should be on the same page.
Yes.
Right, when it comes to the goals and motivations.
Yes.
But honestly, I think it's tough sometimes for that to happen. And I think that individual faculty, hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so going back, I think individual faculty have to take up this mandate. So for example, if you know that there is going to be an event that international students as well as domestic students can attend, and that can enhance, interactions and cooperation, that may be something that you would highlight in your classroom and emphasize for students to attend so they can learn more, because the more you learn about other cultures and other people, the more you can appreciate the differences, and also feel that you can do more in terms of advocacy for this group of people. So that's what I try to do from my seat as a faculty member. But as regards what other faculty do, that is really something that is up in the air, because it's a difficult thing to do, basically.
Can I add one quick thing without talking too much? I think that if faculty perceive supporting the institutional mission of engaging and retaining international students as a burden, it's not going to happen. If the faculty perceive that as something that helps them, something that makes them more effective educators, I don't know how to achieve that. Maybe through reward mechanisms, or maybe through other types of psychological motivation. One approach that I have been using in faculty training when I go to other institutions, when I do faculty training activities on my own campus, is to basically show that when you facilitate international students' academic transition by making your teaching more accessible and internationally engaging, or interactive to benefit both parties, international and domestic students, faculty go, I thought it was going to be a burden. Turns out it can be less of a burden. Turns out it can make me a better teacher. I don't know. I think we need that somehow to press that button where the faculty goes, I thought it was a burden. Turns out it's not a burden. In fact, it's the opposite. I don't know. I may be overstretching the point.
And it calls for. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, one of the things I'd add from a faculty perspective as well is I do think the points we've made. I think a lot of faculty they're not motivated by money. They're motivated by wanting to accomplish something that is often intangible, and
Yes.
the recognition of that by the institution means so much more.
Yep.
And what I mean is I know our institution has an award for faculty who are doing great things in terms of interacting with international students. That says that's an institutional priority, and it allows people to know that story, including that as a part of faculty orientation. And then the other thing I would say with working with some different universities across the country, this isn't easy to do, but the people who work in the ISS office, going into the departments where there's a large number of international students, and first of all, thanking them for their work with the international students and talking about how it really strengthens the academic mission of that institution and how it's a better institution because of their work with international students. That goes a long way. And then second is to really listen, because often faculty might see the benefits, but sometimes they do have concerns or complaints or misperceptions about what might be happening in terms of why the international or why the institution is doing certain things with its international student recruitment. And pushing that kind of information into departments, showing up at department meetings or college level meetings to talk with faculty, creates that two-way dialogue to express thanks, appreciation, and value, but also to understand how faculty might be perceiving some of the changes, especially if institutions are rapidly increasing their international student populations.
Can I ask you a quick question? When you said the International Student Office should go to departments and try to encourage and inspire and motivate faculty, I'm thinking most of the international centers, international services that I've seen do not have that kind of expertise or scholarship or a person who can speak with that voice. Instead, they're the visa centers that do almost nothing else. And I'm thinking, where does that advocacy come from? I think if the university is smart enough to place a scholar in the international division, that will make a huge impact right there, right? You don't need to do too many things. You'll just plant the seed in the right place and the tree will grow. But most of them don't. There's just the visa centers. And how do you achieve that? I mean, where do we look for those advocates for international students, if not at the international center?
I think that's an important point that Dr. Sharma is raising there, because most of these centers really talk about your immigration status and when you're going out of status and the number of credits you've registered and what you need to do and all that, which they are all very important. But I think we'll get to that point where we really need to have, like Dr. Sharma said, a scholar who can really be a go-to person, so that this person has got some content knowledge, has got some competency, and has gone overseas and has seen, been to some of the countries where these international students come from. More often than not, you get someone who doesn't even have real experience just because this person is, is an administrator, have got some experience here and there, but doesn't really feel the pains of international students. Because if you have that real first-hand experience of what these people are going through, if you're invested in that process, it will also change the tone and tenor of the discourse. It will move it from just playing your role of an advisor to also being a supportive and a helping hand. And that's very, very important. And more so to the question, thinking about what faculty can do, I think faculty members, they are doing a great job, that's no doubt. Going back to what Dr. Sharma said, for them to really be more invested in that process. See it as you are doing this to develop yourself further, to be a better scholar. Not just going for that faculty learning training because you want to know how to facilitate instruction for international students. No, that's the disconnect. Seeing it as investment in the self. And also during my interview, one thing that came up was instructor pacing. Some of the people I interviewed mentioned that their professors speak so fast that they don't even understand them. So if you've gone through this process and you're intentional and purposeful about it, you want to know that somebody like me who's from a different country and that we are here and that, that person is important.
Since we are running out of time, Dr. Jordan Liu looks like wants to say something.
Yeah, I do. I want to share a different perspective. As you know, I have been in university administration for more than 5 or 6 years. And I want to remind you that the international portfolio in any university is not the big priority. Compare with research, academic affairs, institutional effectiveness, student affairs, and other portfolios. So I think the real essence is how important is international office considered in a university strategic plan. Yes. Some universities even do not even consider global affairs as its institutional priority. As such, we need to look at all the holes we have. For instance, faculty promotion does not include international portfolio. Some assistant professors are passionate about helping students, but they are not encouraged to do that. Sam, you know that kind of thing, right?
Yes, yes.
And so to me, the real essence is that international office programs are undermanned right now. All the resources do not go to international office. That's why visa office cannot do more than what they handle, all those visas. And there is no service included. Therefore, to me, the key is to really promote the importance of international office, but also expand its functions, allocate more resources, network with colleges, deans, and faculty to have different kinds of faculty advisor team to really build it as integral part of university culture. Only by doing that can we really look at all those unified strategies to help international students. So I think we need to advocate, because I work with other counterparts in the AIEA, they're all international administrators. And when I network with them, all they're concerned about how can we have the ear of the president or provost to talk about the issues we're concerned on a daily basis. And I think the real power is that whoever is leading this international office needs to be an advocate to empower its function, to get more resources, to network with faculty, and to really make it as an institutional priority. So I think that is something we can all try to contribute to. I'll stop right here.
Well, I definitely wanted to say, because I was jotting down some notes, something about creating links and creating bonds. We have, different majors and academic programs at institutions such as the language department, such as international business, international affairs, which students are interested in. And so it's being able to make those connections. Can these departments work with the student groups to have programs? And a lot of teachers, a lot of faculty members and professors want to make that link of attend this program. Then we'll talk about some class extra credit. What did you learn from this experience? Can they be GAs to, the graduate assistants to these programs, to, the departments? Another thing was, how can we educate the students? Because that's a really big thing of educating students. So if we look at what's on television right now, what's worldwide broadcasting, if people looked at us, they would say, oh, Bad Girls Club, maybe Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. And then sometimes people are looking at, horrible shows such as, National Geographic that says, people who live abroad are living in huts, they don't have homes, which is just not true. And so we have to educate our students and give our students a global sense, because some of our students, where they come from, they don't understand that there is more than outside the borders and what outside of those borders look like. Are we accommodating, the international student lifestyle? 9 to 5 doesn't work for everybody. They might have a family where somebody has to be at home with, their children, or, are we accommodating that? Are we teaching faculty and staff about culture? We run into the problem of, are we accommodating their religious lifestyle? Okay, so some of our international students are Muslim. Do we have praying rooms in buildings where they're taking most of their classes to accommodate for that lifestyle? How are we accommodating them as a student? And these are changes that we just need to find you a room and set it up to where you need. Those are the smaller changes that, we can definitely make. We have international students that came and we didn't know that some of the Muslim women were like, I cannot shake your hand as my professor. I cannot. And so it was, oh, they didn't know that. And so when the professors go to shake their hand, they step back, where the professor might say, oh, that's disrespectful. But they're like, well, no, that's a cultural thing. And so they want to learn culture across the board and being able to understand that. And there are people on campus within departments that do understand, that do deem this as important, but it's getting them together to make this a supportive environment, because it's not just the job of the international programs. And we always talk about with a domestic student experience. We know when they come to any college, it's not just about the academics, which is why we have this array of activities and programs on campus. So why does that become different for an international student? What makes that so different?
Yeah,
good point. Any other things to add? I know we
can I add one quick thing based on some of the things that colleagues in the past few minutes have brought up, especially Dr. Liu's point that he brought up. I was thinking, from all of this conversation, I'm thinking there is a need for sort of change in perspective, where when we see problems with female students, we just don't call up the gender studies department and say, hey, can you guys fix this, right? I mean, it's larger than that. When we find any problems with international students, just call up the international student office and say, hey, you need to fix this, right? I don't think that kind of system that completely depends on institutionalized structures, formalized systems, will work anymore. Instead, I think there is an ecology outside of that garden, where we not only look at the flowers in the garden, which is supposed to hold all the flowers, but there are even more flowers in the wild, right? In other words, the university ecology extends far beyond the flowers of the garden to the flowers of the wild, if we really are interested in flowers, right? With the way we look at institutions as structures and silos, there is a problem in the very perception, in the very definition of how support works. Support may work, like Dr. Liu said, and really in the beginning, by looking at some of these things where you wouldn't look at, like student-owned communities and networks. The best support that I've found so far in graduate student support system is student networks, where they hack and create and co-opt and adapt and, mechanisms of support. Just to give a quick concrete example, a student said he wrote his PhD dissertation proposal by borrowing a template from one senior student, by getting help from another student to adapt that template to his research agenda, then showing the professor to look at whether this is the right kind of thing that he needs to submit, and finally going to the Writing Center for helping out. If the student did not create his or her own system to put 4 pieces of support into one project, like our student participant today is talking about, how she developed that agency to be able to find all of these pieces and put them together and make that puzzle. But not all students are going to be able to do that. So we need to, as institutions, realize that support mechanisms is not working by looking at the silos, but instead by looking beyond the garden, so to speak.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we leave, I'd like to add this.
Go ahead.
In the context of the admission and retention, there were about 800 students from Syria attending American colleges in 2015 and 16, and the Iran sent some 12,000 students to the United States last academic year. And in the context of today's politics in the United States, there was a lot of heated rhetoric in the campaign about the refugee and the Muslim, and then now the President Trump is making this ban one of his first actions as a president in the first week. Hopefully this will change the scenario, or may not change. We will be watching this closely. Thank you very much for today's participant, for your time and your input. We appreciate for your suggestion and feedback. Hopefully sometime we will implement them in our everyday life in academia.
Any other thoughts that you are